If you're just looking at the episodes as they're listed currently, one of these will not look like the other.
Episode 2.
Almost.
Did I guess it right?
So close. Double that. Episode 4.
Math.
The show is called How to Make It as an Artist, and we're covering a basketball player. So, Cameron, how is basketball an art form?
That is a really good question, and I'm not sure that I know the answer. What is art? That's okay. No, this is interesting. If you were to invent a sport, I don't know if you'd be like a sportsman or an artist. If you were to invent the game of basketball, I feel like that's kind of artistic, to be an inventor.
Like there's that level of science and art to almost everything that involves creation.
But for Michael Jordan to master the sport, he didn't come up with it. He didn't invent the wheel, but he mastered it. Mm-hmm. That's an art too. I think there's something about, like, I was thinking the other day about if you were a public speaker, is that art? I'm not so sure, but if you could get large crowds of people to give you their attention for a long period of time, I think you've crossed the line into being somewhat of an artist.
Like the act itself is not an art, but doing it in a way that instills inspiration in others and rises you to a level at which people then begin to look up to you for it.
Yeah, and I could be wrong about this, but maybe artists think different. Maybe they have a different perspective than non-artists. And Michael Jordan definitely has a different perspective than non-Michael Jordans. So Let's get into this because there's so much to talk about. And
I just side note, I'm very happy that you enjoyed this, that you watched the Last Dance documentary.
So good. You are a fan.
I still had to rep the Spurs.
You're wearing a great t-shirt. You're a fan of the sport. I have not historically been, and I'm a fan now. Problem is, I probably won't be watching every game, in the upcoming seasons. It's just so fun to look back and look at somebody that was the best at what they do. Right. That was so good at what they do.
And you mentioned something when that was going on, where you said, I love basketball now, but the main reason why is because of Michael Jordan, and he's not playing anymore, and so I'm not really probably going to tune in. And I said that's one of the reasons why people are constantly on the look for, as soon as Michael Jordan was finished, as soon as he retired, people are like, who's the next Michael Jordan? Who can we crown? Because people are constantly looking for the next bigger and best, and
there's not going to be another Michael Jordan.
There's not. There may come people who are able to make a claim to being the best or trying to dethrone him or whatever it may be, but for who he was and still is, there's not going to be the same person that affected the world on the scale that he did.
Well, and even much more in my realm of music, if you were to say there's going to be someone that's a lot like Coldplay or U2 or Mumford & Sons or Radiohead. Mm-hmm. Even if this new artist has the same genre or the same style or the same potential, they didn't write the songs that those other bands wrote. In basketball, you could have somebody with the same potential, similar talents, but they didn't do the things that this legend did, and they didn't make the history that this legend did. There's no way that there would ever be another Michael Jordan. Maybe we'll get to talk a little bit about that getting into this. But first things first, to be Michael Jordan, something that I think is implementable is mindset. You have to be a showman. And to be a showman, you can't be this introverted, quiet guy or girl. If you have in your mind that you'd like to, hide under a hoodie or hide beneath your hat or not have to be a showman, I would just scratch Michael Jordan off the list of people that you'd like to be like.
Yeah. Well, that's another piece where even, not to just like go the opposite direction, but even there are even introverts who are able to really own being an introvert in a really interesting way that turns them into a showman. Like, you don't have to be like an overly bubbly personality to be someone that people are drawn towards.
That's fair.
But in the realm of Michael Jordan, the one of the things that I think about is famous people are famous people for a reason. Almost to the same level of respect and awe that you see when he's actually playing the game. You feel that same kind of awe and like gravitas. I don't think I pronounced that word right. When he's just walking and there are mobs just swarming him, or when he's standing there talking in the image of the 30 microphones all inches from his face.
Microphone's coming from behind him over his
Oh,
shoulder.
yeah. And
Who needs personal space, right?
you begin to wonder, like, how is it that person who at the time was easily, I would think, the most famous person in the world, just no matter where he steps into, no matter where he goes, when he steps into a building, all eyes immediately go towards Michael.
Right. I think it started from a young age. I mean, we're having a conversation about how to be the best, but he wasn't always the best. He had to shape himself into what he was. It was a decision that you can or won't make. It's not something that you just are, like you just are the best. There's loads of people with great intuition. And there's some people that really maybe have no chance. And I don't know what to speak on that. But if you have good intuition, you have some talent, to be able to choose to live a life where you stress yourself out, like you work harder than anyone else around you. You're not looking left and right at the people around you and basing your hard work off of them. If you want to be the best, you are only competing with yourself, and you have to always be better than yourself. That is a constant drive of hard work, and I think that would be really stressful.
Yeah, that's a really important point that I don't think
it's so respectable.
I don't think gets brought up often, is just our natural propensity to justify the work that we do or don't put in based on the amount of work that the people around us are putting in. And so if the people around us are working and really driving themselves, that's going to oftentimes, at least for me, make me feel like I need to get up and get going. But, obviously if everybody around you kind of is failing to live up to the standard that you think you should be, it's going to be a lot easier to justify coming down to that level in terms of hard work and being the person that you want to be.
Right. Again, it's like Kanye West saying, why am I going to listen to these people, these businessmen that aren't doing what I'm doing, that aren't probably even able to do what I do? And they're telling me what to do. And I'm like, I'm not going to listen to you. You're not me for a reason.
Right.
I'm doing what I'm doing because nobody else is doing that, and I want to. He's on his own road, and he's driving down it. I have a quote here where Michael Jordan told Roy Williams, I want to be the best player to ever play here. And Roy responded, well, then you've got to work harder here than you did in high school.
Yeah.
This was right after,
that was in college, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love this.
And that's part of the classic story of, like, I love that he got cut from his high school team.
Well, Michael Jordan said, I worked as hard as everybody else in high school. And then Roy was like, excuse me, I thought you just told me you want to be the best player to ever play here. And so Michael Jordan said, I'm going to show you nobody will ever work as hard as I work. It's this moment where, you're a naive kid and you're like, I want to be the best. And you kind of lean on this idea that if other people are working hard, I'm going to match them.
And hoping that, like, any level of talent that you have is what makes you rise above.
There's probably no chance that whoever Roy Williams is and in his life that he has lived up to the advice he just gave.
Yeah, because maybe he didn't want to.
Right.
Or maybe he just didn't have it in him.
I think it's a path that 99.9% of people don't want to take.
There's a reason why there's only one Michael Jordan.
It's amazing.
Yeah. But that moment was especially cool for me to see that he wasn't just born I am going to work harder than everybody else. He still came to a point where he had to learn that.
You can see the moments, the stepping stones in his life where he learned different things that
Yeah,
really
those
stuck
watershed
through
moments
for him in his life.
that really were turning points of shaping who he was and the person that was going to lead him to be who he wound up becoming.
Right. And he was impressive even when he got in. Like, he didn't drink, he didn't smoke, he didn't do other drugs, he didn't party like other players partied.
NBA in the 80s was wild. Not as wild as the 70s, but still.
Yeah,
still
hearing
pretty
him
crazy
talk
place.
about that is like, how is that even professional sports?
Yeah, just going into hotel rooms and filled with every single imaginable vice you can think of.
And I want to be clear, we're talking about things that are implementable, things that you can do to help yourself in your art. That is a huge one.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to see a lot of people drinking, smoking, partying. Think about the hours spent doing things that potentially even set you back mentally.
Yeah.
It's just like you mentioned in the Ed Sheeran episode, that it's like a faucet that when you turn it on, a lot of junk has to get out of it. And then when the junk gets out, water starts flowing. And once it's flowing, it keeps flowing. It's like you get into a groove with your art. You get into a groove with what you're good at. With basketball, with Michael Jordan, I think he got into a groove. He was doing really good. You got to see him break the groove and actually have some trouble getting back into the roll of things for a little while. Granted, because he's incredible, it didn't take him too long. But that's an important thing, to keep your artistic flow flowing.
Keep that flow flowing.
Exactly. And I think when you're drinking and smoking and partying and doing all these other stuff, and maybe I'm the minority here, but I think that doesn't actually help you from a professional standpoint of being able to own up to being an excellent anything, whatever it is you're trying to be.
Yeah. And even if you don't have a problem with doing those things, the level to which they cost you in other areas, whether it's financially or just straight up time wise, that's for me is enough as well. Aside from everything else, on most fronts it seems like a lose-lose.
Right, but I do want to point out, if you want to be an excellent partier, then by all means party, party hardy.
Do it. But this isn't about being an excellent partier.
This is about how to make it as an artist.
This is about how to be Michael Jordan.
When in that season, when he was, not specific season, but like season of his life,
Okay.
I think it's like later 80s, when he's like more at the bottom of the totem pole.
Like a rookie, first couple years.
Building up his career. I mean, honestly, he wasn't really the role model yet, but he totally was living a role model worthy life. I think, just being a stand-up guy and working really hard and being really, really focused. In that stage of his career, he tried to speak with his ability to play because he had no voice.
Mm-hmm.
When you don't have anyone else's respect yet.
You have to earn it from a lot of people.
I think a lot of people, they just love to talk. I mean, look at us.
Yeah.
To be able to show how good you are, that's somewhat rare.
Yeah.
When we sit in here and we practice for hours and hours, we could be making videos online saying, look at us, we're practicing, and we spend an hour or two making those videos and we don't actually get any practice in.
Yeah.
And there's something so nice about the idea that if you really practice enough, maybe you spend less time doing other things. Because I know we suffer from this, like not always putting out enough social media content or documenting things enough. But once we get practiced, and we're going to go out and play live, and people genuinely act like we just blew their socks off with our live show, it just makes me think we are headed in the right direction. We did something right. And it was just hours of saying no to all the other things, whether it be good or bad things, just to practice and hone our skills.
Even simple distractions like the joys of a video game.
The joys of, yeah. That's a big one. That's a big one for a lot of people. Shows
Escapism in general.
Escapism. Yeah. Got to stay away from those iPhone games, kids. So I think it's a really important thing. Like talking to you about this is something I really wanted to bring up is kind of in being Michael Jordan. You talk a lot about being the best, but that's pretty singularly focused on like just on him. I think a big one is have a partner, like a partner in crime, whether it be a partner in business, partner in art, partner in whatever. Have a Scottie Pippen.
Scottie Pippen. Yeah.
And a lot of people listening to this might not know who Scottie Pippen is. They might not have heard or watched The Last Dance.
Right.
Tanner, who is Scottie Pippen?
So first off, The Last Dance is a documentary that he and I both watched about Michael Jordan's time in the NBA and just a little bit before. And amazing documentary. Like I said at the beginning, Cameron wasn't a huge NBA fan before.
And Tanner probably didn't need the documentary because he's like an NBA scholar.
But it's fantastic, and I would recommend that documentary to just about anybody. But Scottie Pippen was essentially Michael Jordan's only teammate that stayed with him throughout all 6 championships that he and the Bulls won over his time during the 90s. And Scottie Pippen, during the time that they were winning championships, was widely considered to be one of the best players in the league, but consistently played the B to Michael Jordan's A, the number 2 to Michael Jordan's number 1, in a way that filled all. Not that everyone always has to be a 1 and a 2, but it's a matter of everybody knowing the exact roles and strengths that they play under. And so in terms of the basketball partnership that they had, Scottie Pippen he wasn't going to go out there and try to score 30 points a night. That was essentially one of Michael Jordan's duties. But Scottie Pippen was pretty much widely regarded, and still is today, as one of the best defenders of all time, as well as being a good facilitator and passing the ball. And
from my perspective, just seems to be a really cool dude.
Really, really fun guy. It seems like everybody who hangs out with him really enjoys him. So
right. Can you be as big as Michael Jordan was without people like Scottie Pippen right next to you? I don't know if that's possible.
Well, that's partially what Michael Jordan eventually had to come to terms with in order to win a championship, because he went, I think, a solid 7 or 8 years in the league where people were widely regarding him as like one of the best players in the league, but he hadn't won a championship yet. And a lot of it was because he was trying to take it all onto himself and didn't really trust his teammates. And
you got to see that moment too when he started to trust them, and it was a revolutionary thing for his career.
Yeah, and that was in large part came from the help of his coach, Phil Jackson, who started implementing a style that they could play as a team that would facilitate Michael's ability, but also be able to involve the rest of the team. And eventually Michael Jordan began to see that he wasn't going to win if he didn't have the teammates that knew how to fit into their roles. And so that's kind of a piece of what made the huge drive that we've talked about Michael Jordan having, of the incredible work ethic, the person to say, I'm going to be the best, is also someone who actually really wants to be the best, is going to bring others along with them. Not that he's going to make other people the best,
but a good point.
Like we've talked about before, with people raising you up or bringing you down, your environment, your surroundings. Having a transcendent character like Michael Jordan, who says, I'm going to be the best, and who has this almost psychopathic drive of competitiveness, where everything's a competition, everything is about if he can bet on it or whatever it may be, and if he can win, he demanded that same level of commitment from pretty much everybody else, and not everybody else was able to give it to him. And so you kind of see where he challenges a lot of his teammates.
Well, he was very uplifting. He was a guy that shared a lot of his secrets, shared a lot of his experience, rather than the image of being the best being that you shut other people down, you push other people down, you bulldoze through people and shove them out of the way because only you're important. That's really not the image for how to do the level of what he did, the level of greatness, the level of being the best.
Mm-hmm. And it's an important distinction because he didn't bulldoze people in terms of pushing them out of the way and shoving them down, saying, I am the best and I'm the only thing that matters. But he did essentially challenge and for some people seemed like he kind of maybe went too far in testing them in order to make sure that they were able to measure up to what needed to be done in terms of being the best team to do their ultimate goal of winning the championship.
And that's the real care behind it. I mean, I've met people like that I don't necessarily relate with, that they can make a room a little bit tense sometimes, but it's because they care so darn much. I try to understand where they're coming from. And the truth is I could probably learn a thing or two from them to care so much that you're willing to get emotional and actually call other people out and say, you should care more. Or, you know, if you're not going to contribute, leave.
Yeah.
That's the tenseness in the room that I could probably learn a thing or two from. I'm always like, hey, let's fill this room with people. And that's one reason why I'm not Michael Jordan. And I'm very interested to see in what ways I can change that.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I tend to be someone who's a lot more kind of just easy to go with, and to a level. Neither of us are very disagreeable, is how we could put it.
Yeah.
Whereas you could classify Michael Jordan as incredibly disagreeable, not just for sake of being disagreeable, but because he knows who he is and what he wants, and he knows what he's there for.
I think that you need to collaborate with people. People that are around you are going to stretch you. They're going to teach you. You do not know everything. You have so much to learn. You will never know everything. But maybe one day you get to know enough and be enough of a pro, have enough experience that you get to teach others. And even that side of life of teaching others is going to just fill you with more expertise, and that's going to teach you. Teaching others is going to teach you. I don't think there's ever a point where you just shut down and you close your doors and you don't interact with anybody else because you're an artist. I don't believe in that image of an artist. And
that doesn't really feel like a true artist, as much of a portrayal as they would like to put forth of them being an artist.
Yeah.
And is almost an essential portion or part of art is what we talked about at the beginning, and that's the sharing of said art. Yeah.
Again, really different than the kind of person that's famous for being mysterious and quiet. I feel like that'd be so much harder to do, even in the sense of being a basketball player as an artist. Michael Jordan making basketball and art, I just don't think you can do that with that image of art. Mm-hmm. I don't think it fits.
Yeah.
I want to talk about how being a figure, being somebody that others can lean on or rely on, is really, really difficult. And it's something that he endured for like a decade.
Yeah.
Be like Mike. That's just such a crazy campaign. Mm-hmm. There's a quote here that kind of shocks me. And Michael Jordan said, "If I could do it all over again, I would never want to be a role model. It's like a game that's stacked against me. There's no way I can win." You know, when you're young and naive, you think, I want to be a role model.
I want to be somebody that others look up to.
You are way ahead of yourself, and that's typical, and yada, yada.
What does that involve? What does that include?
Well, to see the guy that did that, maybe more than most anyone ever does it in history, and having to endure that rather than like, I don't know, presidential leaders or people that rule the world. I don't know. There's a degree to being Michael Jordan that is even more so like a leader of the people than a lot of political leaders are.
Oh, absolutely.
What it looks like is not being the number one yet, saying to your coach, Doug Collins, in 1986, during his first game as a coach, he says here, Coach, I'm not going to let you lose your first game, because he was like chewing through his gum to where like, not his gum, he was chewing on his gum so much that it became like a powder, is what he said in the documentary.
All over his face.
It was like all over his face. He's like, clean up your face, take this water. I'm not going to let you lose your first game because it wasn't looking good. He goes out, he scores like crazy, he wins the game, and it's like saying to your coach, who I guess in one sense is above you, in another sense, he's not above you. You are the leader in this situation. You can step up. I mean, I feel like that's like if you were, I don't know, if you're like interning with, a guy that puts on art galleries or whatever. I don't know how that would work. Maybe he's not selling any art and you're like, you know what? I'm going to go out into this city and I'm going to gather 100, 200 people. And then 200 people come and he sells not all of his stuff, but maybe 20 more paintings. I mean, that guy's going to remember you. You just stepped up and did something he wouldn't even do. And you're just the intern. And you just kind of went above and beyond your boss. I think that says that you have a bright future ahead of you. And the first step towards that future is the next couple things that your boss is going to say to you and the way he's going to treat you. Just because of the way that you act, in normal everyday life. It's so above and beyond, and it's saying you can lean on me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that I see a lot of people, especially our age, oftentimes shy away from, where there's this old saying that if you do more than what you get paid for, eventually you're going to get paid more than what you do.
Right.
And not that like that's all the goal that there is, but it kind of displays a little something that if all you ever do is rise to the expectations that other people have of you, you're not really going to live up to the highest level that I think you can, because what people expect of you is what they've already seen. And so if that's all you ever try to be, then you're not going to like really do what he did. And that's shatter expectations. Nobody, like he didn't start out as the GOAT, the greatest of all time.
Yeah, no one does.
Nobody does. There are people that start out with the people are wondering, oh, could this guy be the next? Or does he have the potential for this? But nobody starts out and it's just like, that is the greatest of all time. We're looking at him as he's growing up right now.
Right. They said in the team, one of the coaches, what was the main coach in the 90s?
Phil Jackson.
Phil Jackson. I should have totally remembered that because I just finished the
Zen master.
Right. So Phil Jackson said, we are only like as good as we are. I'm paraphrasing and butchering it. We're only as good as we are right now, today. Like tonight's game, how we perform is who we are as a team. It's not we won the championship last year, so we're the best. It's tonight, if we suck, we are not a good team.
Yeah.
It's
like
constant...
you're only as good as your next at bat. And I see that.
That's a really good and helpful realization, I think.
I see that with ourselves too, with each song that we put out or each live show that we do, where if it's a show that we just frankly don't do very well, or if
we have to own up to that.
Exactly. I can't just say, oh, well, we had this really good one a little while ago. And well, that doesn't matter. That didn't matter to the people that came and saw or happened to be there and saw it. And that was another amazing piece of something that Michael Jordan said that got me thinking, where he said, and it's just that mindset. He's like, if millions of people are going to take 3 hours out of their day to watch me play basketball,
Right.
I have an obligation to give them the best that I can give. And that's like respecting what you're asking of people. And so musicians, artists, players, anything, any sort of artist that exists, nobody is obligated to enjoy or consume your craft.
Well, you know what? He's living more in the moment. He is doing what he wants to do, which is be the best basketball player. It's so much different than being raised in a world where everyone's a YouTuber. And you look at that and you think, I want to be a YouTuber. And you start a YouTube channel, and the very first thing on your mind isn't, how do I be good at what I'm doing? Your first thought is, I want a following. And was it Steve Martin, the comedian? He said, the very first question you should ask is, how do I be good at this? How do I be funny? It fits everywhere. I mean, even as a comedian to say that, how do I be funny? That should be the first thought. It's not, how do I get
What's the point of being a
100
comedian?
people to show up in a room, or how do I get 1,000 people to show up in a room? It's, how do I be funny?
Yeah.
With one person, with 5 people, that's the better focus. With basketball, you know, it's just, how do I hit every shot? How do I run these drills? How do I hit a shot when somebody's defending me, or when 2 people are defending me? You can constantly push that to the limit of what it is. And I haven't always even been aware of that mindset. That's the funny thing about these helpful, you know, little tidbits, is you really aren't aware of them until you hear them for the first time, which sounds redundant and obvious, but it's so true. And it's such a hindrance to just be in a bubble wherever you're raised, or you know, whatever neighborhood you're in, or part of the country, or part of the world. Like, you're raised differently based on where you're at, based on your family. And you might not be told any of these great little helpful tools that Michael Jordan says, or that these different people say. It's good to tune in, you know, open your ears and be a sponge and just take in all the good information you can find on the internet, to just broaden your awareness. Because I had never thought with that perspective before. How do I be good at what I'm doing? And focusing on that first.
Yeah. I think a portion of, going back to the quote that you talked about, where Michael Jordan said he wouldn't want to be a role model, I think that's different than saying that being a role model is a bad thing. I think he would be fine with doing what he did, and as a result becoming a role model.
Yeah.
But him portraying himself and doing the whole ad campaign of, you know, be like Mike, that whole thing, where he was getting at was less, I'm worthy of being imitated, and more of just, you know, when you present yourself, when your entire persona and identity is somebody who's a role model worth emulating, the minute that something comes along that disrupts that a little bit, it's like you've shaken the foundation upon which your identity was laid. And so I think that, like, that is it's a valuable thing, to be able to be excellent at what you do, and essentially, as he eventually got to do, allow your excellence to be the thing that speaks to others' willingness to look up to you.
Yeah. I think it's about time for a segment, new segment called Whoa, I'm Human.
Love it.
Yeah. Yeah. What
Because
sorts
apparently everybody is human.
right? What sorts of vices did Michael Jordan have that might have stood in the way of doing what he did, making it to where he made it?
What's interesting is that
that could equally stand in any of our way,
Right.
trying to make it.
Right. What's interesting is that people kind of tried to portray that kind of goes into what we were just talking about with when you present yourself as this persona of somebody who's willing to be a role model and worthy of that, as people eventually, when you're at the top, will look for anything that can knock you off of the top. It's this weird
Yeah.
thing that we do in society where we build these figures up and then tear them down. And we kind of love to see that rise and fall, it feels like. And so some of the vices that people tried to get him on in the past were things like gambling and over competitiveness, and to the point of being
I'm a
driving.
professional basketball player. What's my vice? I'm too competitive.
Yeah.
I just want to
Like,
win too gosh darn much.
my goal is to win. Oh, too bad.
Yeah, and the gambling thing obviously seemed like a joke.
Yeah.
Didn't seem like a problem.
Yeah. I mean, he definitely was competitive to a level that pretty much almost nobody on earth is or was.
But it could be because like he was rolling in it, and
Yeah.
like he was making so much
and
money.
he
and he was
he
on
would
top
do
of the
things
world.
like he
he
would
did well.
the documentary even showed he would bet with his security guards
Yeah,
of, I'll bet I can get that coin closer if I throw it closer to the door than you can on the floor. And they wouldn't even bet money. He just loved competition so much.
yeah, and everybody had fun with it.
Yeah.
I don't know that I noticed if he had any vices at all, really, like any main vices like other celebrities or role models have had. He's shockingly, he kind of fits the whole be like Mike thing. It was impressive. Granted, I have no idea what his life looks like post 1998.
Right.
I guess most people don't,
Right.
but
And I mean, like just the level of him being human. Like the documentary didn't go into it at all, but why would it? Talking about his ex-wife or really much about his kids or anything like that. Not that there's anything egregious there, but just he is still he's this almost godlike form in culture and society. And
that first moment when he messed up somewhere in the NBA and they were like, he's human?
yeah,
That's what
exactly.
the announcer said.
Because that was that level
good.
of him being almost like Superman, or for anime fans, All Might.
Right.
Of it's just always he's gonna pull through.
And I could
He
rant
is
about
going to win it.
the ties between him and All Might.
Yeah.
But I won't. But I
To
could.
save people from that.
I mean, what do you think? It's a big question. What do you think was a better Michael Jordan, or say it another way? What do you call it?
Three-peat?
Which three-peat do you think was better?
Okay.
The first one or the second one?
So for people who don't know the history of it, Michael Jordan's team, the Chicago Bulls, while he was with them, won 6 championships total, and they did it in pairs of triplets, I guess you would say. And so they won a three-peat, 3 in a row, in 91, 92, and 93. And then they won another repeat in 96, 97, and 98. And that's because Michael Jordan essentially was tired after the first three-peat of being this huge, larger-than-life figure of people dissecting every single movement that he made. And honestly, like that exhaustion of, I think that's another thing the documentary kind of portrayed really well, was he literally couldn't go anywhere. Like some of his closest friends were the security guards because it was their job to be around him and just be normal with him and treat him like a human being.
Right.
Whereas if he went anywhere else, he was like, that's Michael Jordan. You don't treat him like a normal person almost. And so a lot of that exhaustion led to him retiring for a year and a half, going and playing baseball. And then coming back at the end of all that and saying,
With a baseball bod.
Yeah, with the baseball bat.
Not a basketball
having
bod.
to completely rework his body to be stronger on the lower half with the legs and all that sort of stuff, and then coming back, getting back into basketball shape, all that sort of stuff. So coming back from retirement from playing baseball and
Becoming the greatest team again and doing it all over
doing
again.
the second three-peat, I think was a lot more impressive. He wasn't his peak as an athlete, just a pure physical specimen, would be the first three-peat, I think. But in terms of, overall all-around person, he's somebody who understood, there's a sports guy, his name's Bill Simmons. He talks about something that another basketball player from the 80s named Isaiah Thomas called The Secret. I think it was Isaiah Thomas. And the secret is essentially just understanding how to win. And that's
what a secret.
And it's basically being a team player, but being the best player as well as a team player. And that's essentially when he really began to understand that, as well as being able to, like Jordan even talked about it in the documentary. He said out of all the championship runs, the 98 season, their last championship, was his favorite because it was when he learned how to incorporate his athleticism into his understanding for his craft.
So I have to be the best musician, but I also have to be the best at playing with other musicians.
That could be a part of it. Or not even just playing with the other musicians, working with producers, working with fans, interacting with fans, people who want a following. They'll go and post, and then people will comment or send them a message, and they won't give them the time of day. And it's like, who are you to not respond to the one person that wants to talk to you and be a fan of yours?
Right. Here's another one. I have to be the best at painting with red, but I also need to be good at painting with other colors.
That's debatable because there are a lot of shades that you could work with.
That doesn't fit as well.
You could be the red painter.
All right. That could be my brand.
But yeah, I would say the second three-peat is Michael Jordan's best run.
Okay. Well, I probably don't know anything, but I was thinking the first one was pretty cool just because it seemed that he was physically just ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
In the first one. But you're right. The mental state mattered a lot in the second one, which was very impressive that he managed to play with his mind and his body.
Mm.
Yeah, man, are we able to be Michael Jordan? Probably not.
Probably not. Like we said, there won't be another Michael Jordan.
But even Michael Jordan got to a point where it was like, man, can I keep being Michael Jordan?
Yeah.
And his whole thing was just, you got to try.
Mm.
I think that's the real takeaway. No matter what it is that you're doing, that's your art, whether it be, social speaking, public speaking.
Social speaking.
Yeah.
I social speak all the time.
Right. So do I. So yeah, Michael Jordan's very impressive, and there's a lot to learn from him.
Yeah.
He is a specimen.
He is worthy of being looked up to and us drawing inspiration from him. Find the thing that you want to be more than anything else and drive after that. Like commit to diving into your craft.
Yeah, that's good.
Is that Michael Jordan?
Yeah. Cool.